From Content 360, this is the state of client acquisition. All right, and we are live on the very second. Sam Browne, great to meet you finally.
And you too, man. Thank you for having me.
Oh no, it's my pleasure. It's my honor. So let's quickly. I know we don't have the sound. I somehow couldn't figure out how to add the sound, but let's just. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Sam Browne with Black River Drive. Really, really good song. I only now discovered that you were such a rock star. So maybe we start there. Maybe we start there. How was it? How was it being such a rock star, man?
Well, it was a long time ago, but yeah, I mean, it was actually kind of like the beginning of. It actually leads to now, really. So I started my first online business, Find a Band, which, as the name suggests, helps people find a band. And I really just did that as a means of paying for my music career that I wanted to have. I didn't have a music career. I was working in sales in corporate. I was actually working for Yahoo at the time. And you know, I was in this corporate job till 9 to 5 every day. I'd get home tired. I wouldn't want to work. And actually, a guy that I'd been teaching guitar, who really, when I started teaching him, he could hardly play. He was making albums, and I thought, man, this dude's making albums, and I'm sitting here in my cubicle. And I taught him how to play guitar. So there's something wrong with that, and it kind of spurred me on to find a way to have an income without having a job. And honestly, at that point, I wasn't sort of interested in entrepreneurship particularly. It was just a means to an end. And from there, the agency in the very early years, like any new business, was very low in terms of dollars. Lots of time in, very few dollars out. But it was a good apprenticeship, and it did pay for me to make that first album that song was on. So we did that album over the course of 2010. We released it in October 2010. And I remember that month because my daughter was also born that month. So that was a big month for me, October of that year.
That's
and yeah. And so we did the band thing for I think about 6 years in total. So we did that album. We had 2 songs that went to #1 on the New Zealand rock charts.
Wow.
Which was cool. It was a really cool experience, and a really big goal to hit. I don't know if it'll be in there or not, to be honest. Hopefully it is. And then we toured it and so forth. It was really exciting. It kind of felt like it was all going to happen. It was like a really big there was a big buzz, I guess, at that point, and it was like, maybe this is going to work out. And so then after we toured it around New Zealand, we didn't take it any further than that. We spent a couple of years working on songs, and I actually wrote the word Nashville on the whiteboard in our band rehearsal room. Some friends of ours had done a record there and come back telling us how amazing it was, and we really wanted to go. And, you know, that's the other side of the world for us. So it was a huge thing to go from little old New Zealand to Nashville. And I didn't know how we were going to do it, but I wrote the word up there and started, I guess, kind of putting my mind to it. And we ended up crowdfunding a huge part of the cost through a New Zealand version of Kickstarter. And we also put more agency money in. So again, Find a Band helped a lot with that cost, which was substantial. And we did, in fact, go to Nashville. We recorded with an amazing producer who'd worked with bands like Alice in Chains, Ozzy Osbourne, Kiss, some huge rock bands. And that album, I don't think, none of the songs, ultimately, honestly, I much prefer that second album. It was much more what I wanted to do, but it was much less radio friendly. It was sort of a heavier album. I was trying to do kind of an Alice in Chains type thing. And so, you know, it even though I prefer it musically, it didn't do as well. Then we were touring that one, and my voice actually blew out really badly. One night, I had been pushing it really hard. Vocally, it was a really hard record to perform, and which was my own fault because I'd written all the songs. And one night, I just couldn't sing. I actually could barely talk, and we actually did do the gig, and we used the backing track from the album, which still had my lead vocal on it, and I basically had to lip sync it without the audience knowing. And we had people come up
Wow.
afterwards and say, "That was the best show you guys have ever done. You sounded so good." It's because they were hearing my record vocal. That was the last.
Wow.
I think maybe we did a couple of other shows after that, much later when my voice recovered. But kind of the spirit of the band kind of died at that point. We really had pushed so hard for so many years, and everybody was kind of getting married, having kids, and moving into the next phase of their lives. And so that was kind of it. But I look back on it really fondly. And as I said at the start, it really put me on the entrepreneur journey, and really kind of leads me to where I am now and what I'm doing now.
Quick question on the voice topic. Do you have any long-term, did you experience any long-term consequences? Is your voice good now?
Yeah, no, I don't have
Completely?
any problems now. It basically was like if you're a runner and you ran, 20 marathons, it was like that. The muscles were exhausted. It
Yeah.
took about, it actually took a long time, probably about a year to get back to 100%. And my confidence as a singer took longer, probably another year, to kind of feel like, yeah, I can definitely do this. There were quite a few false starts where I thought I was fully recovered, and then I'd go and do a show and blow my voice up again. It was weaker than I remembered it being.
And do you think, could you now perform the same songs again at the same level of quality?
Yeah, I could now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Interesting. Yeah, I'm
yeah.
asking, is this, yeah, go ahead.
Just I guess I suppose I would in the right circumstances, but the songs are, I mean, they're from like 12 years ago, and I was in my late 20s then. I just turned 40 recently. I think if I did it again, I would do a different music style. I would write new songs. I would do something completely different. It's kind of like a phase of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm asking because I was not nearly at the same level as you. I was in a cover band and I blew out my voice by singing things like AC/DC and Guns N' Roses that I was simply not equipped to do. I'm much more of a Sinatra style crooner. And
Right.
but we had way more fun singing that kind of the AC/DC stuff. And I completely overdid it. And it feels almost like I permanently damaged my voice. Like I still feel that I cannot get up to the old levels, but that could be just pure aging. Anyway, this is not about singing, and people have come to join us in order to hear about you and your LinkedIn exploits. So
Sure.
can you share your story? How did it come from you being a rock star, then find a band or kind of doing that in parallel, to you now being on LinkedIn and being the LinkedIn prodigy that you are?
Yeah, and that's your word, not mine. I was thinking it's
I
more
know,
like
yeah, it's absolutely mine.
the LinkedIn idiot savant. Yeah, so okay. It's such a funny thing, man. I think there's a lot lately that it's like COVID is another example of this. You just don't know where you're going to be in a year or 2 years or 3 years. And anybody who's sort of a serious entrepreneur is a planner and a goal setter and a 5-year plan person, and I'm all of those things. And yet, who could have predicted that we would be facing what we're facing with the pandemic? Who could have predicted Ukraine situation? It just, these things just come out of nowhere. And I mean, not to compare my situation to what's going on there, but at all. But just in terms of the unexpected nature of life, LinkedIn is like that for me. If you told me 5 months ago we'd be having this conversation because I had all this, I was having success on LinkedIn, it honestly, it was not remotely a part of my life then. And I'm trying to think back to what exactly happened. I think I must have been on there in, let's say, October 2021, October, November, something like that. And I must have read one of Justin Welsh's posts and seen how much cut through he was getting. I can't remember the exact moment, but obviously I did at some point see what he was doing and see that he was offering this course. I think it was on special for like $90. And it seemed kind of too good to be true. And then I looked up his profile to see how he was doing. I think he had like 150,000, 130,000 fans at the time, followers. And I was like, yeah, this guy's the real deal. He really knows how to do this stuff. And for whatever reason, I thought, okay, I'm going to learn LinkedIn. And so I did that. And I have to say, like, doing that course was absolutely the catalyst for me being able to have the success I'm having now, in terms of learning a few really essential tricks. Tricks is maybe the wrong word, techniques, strategies, tactics. And specifically, he talks about the hook. And the hook is the headline, subheading, the call to action. So, you've got 5 lines before somebody clicks, read more, or I think it is, see more. So what most people who are serious about LinkedIn are doing, they do the headline, a space, subheading, space, call to action, and the call to action will usually have like a down arrow, pointing down finger, something like that. And if you look at my posts, I mean, they pretty much all do that. But it's like that. That was really such a game changer. And once I started doing that, and then obviously the other part of it is you need good content. And so I've been doing online business for 15 years, and I've done, I guess, some interesting stuff. I found it interesting. I enjoyed the process and made tons of mistakes. I learned exactly what I know now, the long, slow, hard way. And I try and cast my mind back to what it's like in year 1, year 2, year 3. In year 5 of my entrepreneur journey, I was totally ready to quit. I'd been earning more or less minimum wage from my business for 5 years, and it just wasn't really working out. And in hindsight, what it was, I mean, lots of reasons, but I was trying to do something that's a pretty niche business in a tiny country, and if I was starting over now, I probably wouldn't do a band business. That one has come so far that now it is a really good business, but only because of all of the years of love that have been poured into it. So that's what it was. But I didn't know that at the time. I just thought I was a huge failure and was ready to go back to the rat race. But anyway, got through that. I did a wedding directory marketplace called Auckland Weddings. I learned SEO, and that really has been huge for everything I've done. I did some other city wedding websites, Wellington Weddings. So these are cities in New Zealand. And then most recently I did nzvenues.co.nz, which is a nationwide venue guide for New Zealand. So these have all been New Zealand centric sites, and they've essentially been marketplace sites. Yeah, so that's that one there. And so throughout, this one I co-founded with a partner. So we were 50-50, and I sort of did came up with the idea and then handled the project management of the design and the development. And my business partner's taking care of things like sales and finance and HR, all the stuff that I am not that interested in. So that's been really fun because I've gotten to work on the fun stuff. And then, coming back to LinkedIn, honestly, I didn't go into it with a great game plan, and I am truly surprised at how well it's gone. I knew that I could write. I've studied copywriting. I love to write. I've always been someone who does their best to write really well, but I couldn't have anticipated that it would go as well as it has gone. Once it did start to go well and I started to see what worked, I doubled down on it. And it's definitely quite addictive to be getting feedback from people that what you're writing is helpful. They're enjoying it. They enjoy your voice. They are enjoying that you are doing something very different to everybody else. So it's been quite an organic process rather than a master plan that I'm executing.
Okay. So, and you don't have really a goal, right? So on that point, you just are enjoying the fact that your content is obviously resonating, but a very clear purpose with this where you think, okay, I'm just going to get to X amount of followers, and then you're going to start building a product for them that is currently not on the cards, right? You don't have a specific plan.
No, I do. I certainly do plan to do that. And again, I didn't know that at the outset. I didn't know how well things would go, but I am planning on, I mean, the way I see it, I'm building a personal brand. I'm building an audience who like what I'm talking about and want to learn more about what I'm talking about. And yeah, I'm sort of actively conceptualizing, for example, a course, possibly a book, digital products for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. And so just to quickly rewind your past businesses, which ones were the one that was the most successful, from like NZ Venue Hire or the wedding business? Which ones was the one that sort of was your claim to success?
Yeah, actually the band one, believe it or not, by
Well, the
far.
band one. Okay.
Yeah. So I think the venues one will be the biggest of the ones I've done so far, but only launched in 2019, so it's still just six figure. The Find a Band is seven figures. We did seven for the first time in 2019, and it had been very steady upward growth for every single year, really. It grew by about 20% a year on year. I just hired quite a big team, or a bigger team than I'd ever had. And then COVID hit, and had to let people go, had to reduce right down, and really it's been 2 years of treading water. And again, if not for COVID, there's no way I'd be so active on LinkedIn. I'd be probably just running my various businesses and behind the scenes, as I have done for many years.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of your involvement on LinkedIn, I kind of went back in the timeline back to when you actually started the 1 or 2 months ago. This was just the typical 3 months ago, Find a Band is hiring post. And then you went into it about a month ago, which on LinkedIn usually means 2 months. You said you started talking about your online business. Is this already now after having done the Justin Welsh course that you started with this at this point?
I think that's the first one where I'd done his course.
Okay, good.
I'm pretty sure.
And so do you have I mean, you said you don't have a master plan, but it seems, what I really appreciate about your writing is that it seems to be like a coherent persona. Not that you're crafting it, you're probably a natural at that. But I feel that you have a rare combination of, first of all, your content is very specific and very helpful. Like, for example, that concept of the sidecar posts, where you mentioned sidecar posts. Maybe could you quickly explain what that is?
Yeah. So it's a sidecar post is the analogy is if an influencer on LinkedIn is riding on a motorcycle, you are attaching your sidecar to their motorcycle. There you go. And so what it means, how you do it, is when you see an influencer has posted a piece of content that you have something insightful, surprising, interesting to add to the conversation, you essentially do it. Your comment is essentially a post. So you comment, and I even do things like I do a headline, subheading, not a call to action exactly, but I'm basically showcasing my writing to the influencer's audience without being spammy, without telling them, oh, hey, go and check out my stuff. There's no need. And what's amazing with a sidecar post, apart from the fact that you get in front of the influencer's audience, is you get to market test a post before you do it for real. So, for example, in the one that I was talking about at the time, I had just done this on one of Justin's posts, and I think it got something like 25 or 30 likes or something. And that's unusual. For a comment to get that many likes means that obviously it's resonating with a lot of people. So when I see that happen, I usually think, okay, I can just rejig that a bit and use it as a post. And I actually do that all the time. A lot of my best posts started out as comments.
Exactly. And that is also, of course, something that Justin Welsh is teaching. I also bought the course. I learned a lot from it. And this technique of going on to big influencers' content and then commenting on it and actually finding out when they are posting, so that you can be one of the first ones, because that gives you an advantage when you do that. And being on there, I think that should be part of the arsenal of everyone who wants to be serious with LinkedIn. You simply find out when the big influencers that also attract your target audience are posting, and then just make sure that you post something that is considerably more than just great post, or even like just a 2-3 liner, right? Make it something that even like with bullet points, make it attractive to look at, so that it's like a post in itself.
Correct.
And I agree with you. Several of my comments on influencers posts were, I think that the best one got like 40 likes and 2 or 3 inquiries and 1 client. So there is even money in it. If you do that well, the people will actually come to you, because of course you get exposure that your own content, when you're still at the relative beginnings, could not get.
Yeah, I think totally, man. And the other thing I would say as well is with Justin, with who else do I do it on? He's the biggest, and he's got the biggest following, and his content is obviously not a million miles from mine. He's both an entrepreneur and a LinkedIn guy. I've never actually talked to him about it. He probably thinks it's quite amusing that I'm teaching people how to do LinkedIn, having his course like 2 months ago, whatever it is. But I'm also very respectful of the fact that he kind of lets me do it, and I'm always acknowledging as well that I learned some stuff that I now do that is really essential to my process, if you like. I learned from him. He is a very generous guy in terms of the way how much he shares in the course. The value of the course is insanely good. And then I'm in his private membership group, which is called Audience and Income. And that's like $400 a year, which I know is not nothing, but you get so much value from it. He is just constantly creating really good resources and really supporting everybody. So I'm a big fan of his. He's the real deal. He deserves the success that he's got, without a doubt.
Yeah. Okay. But initially my point was, the thing that I really like about you and your content is that, first of all, you're very helpful. So you come up even with concepts like the sidecar posts. And on an aside here, I think you're very good with naming things like sidecar posts. I think that is key. If you want to take a page out of Sam's playbook, everyone, when you realize that there's like a phenomenon, some kind of like a concept, try to name it, coin a name for it, because I think you created that. It's even just sort of Justin's idea. It's in his course. He mentions it, that you should be doing this, but you actually took it and labeled it. You gave it the name Sidecar Posts. So I think that's a particular talent that you have.
Thanks, man. Yeah, does he actually say to do a post on a post? To be honest, I'm still doing the course. I'm about like 3/4 of the way through it. I kind of stopped doing it because I was writing side.
No, you've taken it one step further. You call it a post on a post. He essentially says, go and comment on influencers' content.
Right.
And
okay, good. So that is different,
that.
which is good, because I would hate to say I made it up if he made it up.
No, but come on, everybody is like, there's so few new things under the sun. It's just that you take something that you learn from someone, and you optimize it, you make it better, and that's it. There's no problem in this.
Yeah.
Even Justin, I'm sure Justin has a lot of concepts that he's observed that others do, and that he's now just distilling. It's much more about curating and distilling insights than coming up with completely brand new, genius light bulb moments yourself. So
totally agree, man.
Yeah, that's not.
Yeah, I mean, so to answer your question about the persona, honestly, it is me being myself, and it is authentic. That is my authentic personality. I will say I kind of turn it up. I kind of turn it up to 11, but it's who I am. The jokes, the kind of slang and informality is, I'm like a rock and roll guy. So I'm not a suit guy, and so it's. If I can say, I'm kind of doing it with. I kind of put my LinkedIn hat on, but at the same time, that is really who I am. And also, I'm really careful I never lie. I never exaggerate what I'm doing. I had a guy today call me out on, because I'm constantly saying, just to get the click, I'm like, hey, I got 10,000 views every single post, 10,000 views. And some guy was like, oh, I took a screenshot and prove it kind of thing. And so I went through and I took a bunch of screenshots from my point of view, because I guess you can't see how many views somebody else has had on their post. just to show them, like, 10,000 here, 12,000 there, 30,000, I think once, maybe twice, 20,000 here. Like, I think it's really important to not bullshit, and to actually, if you're having these great results, for sure, you need to share them. And I struggle with that. Most New Zealanders are really bad with any kind of self-promotion. We're very self-deprecating, and we kind of have it drummed into us to stay under the radar and not show off. But it's useful. It's useful stuff for getting the click and getting people reading. And so you'll often notice my headlines are kind of quite hyperbolic and clickbaity. It's like a BuzzFeed headline,
Absolutely.
and then the content won't be quite the same thing. That's because I need to get you into it, and then what happens from there, I can be totally real.
Yeah. And so what is the recipe? I'm kind of trying to distill a recipe from you, not necessarily to copy it in any way, but just to learn, right? So I think some of the things that you have, first of all, you are really helpful and come up with great ideas and concepts. Like, you had this one thing where you suggested to put the links at the footer of your post, right? Which is where we actually started talking and thinking, hey, could this actually be damaging your reach? Which is an open question. But like, you give very specific advice. That's my point. Second, you are really funny. Like, there was this one post with Axl Rose that genuinely, and it does not happen very rarely. Let's see if we can quickly find it. This one. That is so good.
Yeah,
You actually had me laughing out loud,
Oh, that's good. I love that one too. Yeah.
Did
and
you
those
come up?
good morning.
Did you come up with that?
Yeah.
That's great. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, I saw somebody else do it with different pictures, and I thought, oh, what about that picture of Axl Rose looking terrible? Because it's true. My profile pic is like super cool and, in a beautiful studio. And then it's like Zoom is so punishing, the light and everything. So I thought, oh, that's funny. It's fun with those good morning posts that, I haven't done one in a few days, but it's a really fun thing to find something really specific and relatable that you think is, obviously just yourself is feeling. And the more specific you are, the funnier it is, because everybody goes, yeah, that's me as well, so that's just like a fun little challenge. So you're asking about sorry, what was the first part of the question?
No, I'm just kind of coming up with the building blocks of what makes you successful on LinkedIn. So I think number one, obviously, because as I said, you're very helpful, very specific in your advice. Number two, you're really funny. So it's always a joy to read your post, because I'm thinking there's going to be like a cool turn of phrase or something genuinely funny and positive about it. Third, I never see you preach. You're not preachy. Right? You're just cool. Suggesting, right? You're just suggesting things, having ideas, but there's no preaching. Right? So that's three. What else is there? First, and then key, very importantly, is great copywriting. You mentioned that you're really good at that. Where did you learn copywriting?
Yeah. Okay. So there are specific books, and I'm happy to share them. So the one that I've read the most is actually, it's not really a copywriting book. The book I would recommend the most on this sort of thing is Influence by Robert Cialdini. That's an amazing book that really is literally life-changing. You can apply those skills to anything. Just to give one example, and there are many good ones, you learn about the law of reciprocity, that when you do something for someone, even if they didn't necessarily ask for it, you create an obligation for the favor to be returned. A perfect example of this is if you're in a supermarket and there's somebody with a little stand and they're giving away free chocolates because they're promoting a chocolate brand. And so you go up to the stand and you eat the chocolate, and now you feel this kind of strong compulsion to put the chocolate, a pack of it in your supermarket cart, because this favor's been done for you. You've had this free treat. And it's this weird human interaction where you can't then just walk away and say, thanks for the free chocolate, I'll never see you again. You feel very obligated to pay them back. So anyway, that's a big one. But the copywriting book, so the best one is The Copywriter's Handbook by Robert Bly. That one is so good. It's like just packed with really, really actionable copy techniques. and ideas. The same about 10 copywriting books come up again and again. Ogilvy on advertising, the Bohr on letters, scientific advertising. I can give you a whole, totally the classics. I think the Copywriter's Handbook is from, he's talking about like sending out mail and stuff. It was pre-internet, I know that. I think it was written in the 80s or possibly the 70s. And they have updated it to mention the internet, but it's really timeless stuff. So yeah, I mean, I've sort of studied that kind of thing, as part of my overall entrepreneur journey over the years, same with sales and sales psychology. Lots of focus on copy, lots of focus on SEO, although I'm better at copy than SEO, that's for sure. And then kind of design concepts. So I'm not remotely a designer, but I have learned how to communicate with designers and how design works. So essentially how to design websites for maximum conversions.
Okay. So we covered a couple of points. Then I think another one that makes a difference, of course, consistency. Are you posting every single day or 5 days a week? How do you do that?
Yeah, and actually you kind of mentioned before, like, what's the formula and things like that. Honestly, there is no, I'm just writing constantly. I think it'll probably run out at some point. This kind of the almost, it's almost like a mania at the moment where, I wrote maybe 4 posts today. I'm constantly identifying ideas, writing them down in my notes app or whatever I have at hand. And then I will, turn it into a post. I'm kind of in like LinkedIn post mode, honestly, kind of 24/7 lately, it feels like. And so I don't have a, I actually just wrote a post about this. I don't have a content calendar. I don't write to themes. I don't have a series of headlines that I've already written that I then flesh out. I'm literally throwing ideas and notes and then almost kind of just plucking whichever one I feel like, writing a post about it, and if it's good, I'll schedule it. I do schedule with Buffer, with their free thing, which is like, you can schedule up to 7 days in the future for free. Often I just write it and then hit post, so there's no particular time that I do it, because I shouldn't really do that, but I like to just get it out there and see what people think. The only time I don't do that is if it's like 1 a.m. US time or something. My 8 a.m. in the US is about 3 a.m. New Zealand time. So sometimes I'll schedule it and then 5 hours later or whatever, I'll wake up and see how it did. That's why there's no comments from me for those first few hours. So there's, what is happening right now is I'm getting more and more structure, and I'm learning what's working for me, what I like. I actually just booked a series of Zoom calls with 10 people who engage with my content regularly. And I sent them a questionnaire, and I'm basically doing market research to do a better job of what I'm already doing. And also, working towards this course, or courses, as it will probably be.
Interesting. What do you plan? What kind of course will that be?
Man, I wish I had like a perfect answer. I mean, what I'm leaning towards is, a LinkedIn specific one, which will be, if you want to build an audience on LinkedIn, here's how I did it. I probably would not do that until I had about 10,000 followers. So, that's a few months away. And then I would love to do one on, I probably will start to write a lot more about entrepreneurship from here. And I'll be saying, here's how you come up with a great business based on your skills. To start, that's the biggest problem that people have, is like, hey, I hate my job. I really want to start my own business, but I don't know which one I should do. So I would talk about that. I would talk about getting from 0 to, your first 1,000, getting from 1,000 to 10 to 100. And then maybe do kind of like an advanced one, which is like, okay, you've got a business that's making at least 100,000 a year. How do you get to 1 million a year?
Great. We have a question from a viewer. Do you recommend writing that many posts per day? You mentioned you wrote 4. It's not like you've published them, obviously, right? You have not published them. You just pre-wrote them. Is that right?
I did publish two today, and I scheduled the third, but I wouldn't recommend it. Honestly, I'm kind of in a, because of COVID and various things, I'm in a weird place where honestly I'm just living on LinkedIn. I'm either replying to comments or I'm writing posts in Google Docs, and it's not particularly healthy, honestly. So, I could easily be still maintaining momentum and traction and interaction with posting 5 days a week and taking the weekend off. That'd be totally fine. There's no need to do it as much as I'm doing it. And I will say this too, I don't post every day. Some days I post multiple, and then I might have 2 days off just because I'm over it for a little bit. So,
Wow.
there's really no structure to it. There's no particular rules.
Interesting. So, and I was about like on my list of items that are part of your recipe, I actually wrote consistency, but we can sort of put a qualifier around that. You're not terribly consistent when it comes to every day at the same time and 2 posts a day and exactly always at the same time of the day. No, you're quite scattered in that.
Yep. And that, and in everything else in my life. Yeah. So, that's arguably that's part of the persona, right? It's like, but that's true. Like I'm quite erratic and not a particularly disciplined in terms of the way that I'm living.
But where you are consistent in, at least quite recently, you post these good morning to things, like good morning to everyone with a profile pic from 2017, which are there's always some like unique twist to it. Where good morning to people who, what was it? There's a couple of exactly. I love that one. Good morning to people who tidy up before the cleaner arrives.
Yeah. So my girlfriend and I,
you just give good ideas. Right?
My girlfriend and I had just done that. We just cleaned up because the cleaner was coming. I was like, man, this is so stupid. I'm gonna make it a post. Like that's what I was trying to say before. Is like, being so specific about the ridiculousness of life is so universal, right? Like 82 others liked it because they're like, yeah, I do that. So many people commented, they're like, yep, my wife does that, or I do that, and guilty. It's like that. It's so fun to sort of say, we all do this. This is this ridiculous thing that we all do. And honestly, when I find something like that, I love to put it out there. I haven't done a good morning in a while, but maybe I'll start doing them because they are such a fun little mental challenge. I really enjoy putting. I should say this too. I don't know if I've deleted them. I probably have. Sometimes I do them and they bomb. Sometimes I'll do it and it just doesn't catch fire, and that's fine. Specifically the good morning post, although it happens with my full post as well sometimes. So sometimes they don't work out.
Interesting. So then you delete them. Do you?
Okay, the reason for that is there's kind of no value in them. Clearly, they haven't connected, and also I want people who look at my activity feed to have like a smorgasbord of great stuff. I don't want them to have to wade through to find good stuff. So a ton of what I'm doing and what do you call it, strategies that I'm coming up with now, which I'll be sharing in post very soon, is all about repurposing your best performing content in like 10 different ways, basically constantly representing it to new followers. So the most obvious one, as you said, the way that we actually met was, you pointed out correctly, like after I made this big thing, like, hey, let's put heaps of links in the bottom of your post. And you're like, isn't that going to ruin the algorithm? And you're right. Yeah. So now I'm thinking, what you want to do is do your post, publish, let it run for like 7 days. So the algorithm is totally finished with it, and then go back and edit it and add links to all your other best performers at that point. Make sure all of your best performers have these links. And what happens is actually an SEO concept. Now you've got everything connected to everything else. So your follower can jump from post to post and see your best stuff. You're constantly presenting your best stuff, but the key is to not add those links until the algorithm is no longer a consideration. So like a week would be a safe bet that it's no longer in people's news feed. They're only going to see it in your featured content.
Okay. So yeah, it's fascinating stuff. You then, I think it goes to show that there's so many different ways to succeed, and you have found your very idiosyncratic way to do that, because I don't think I have heard of anyone who does such a perfect curation of their stuff. Like, you don't want to, you're effectively optimizing for having great content on there, and that there's no post that has bombed. And it's really, this is the thing that everybody needs to decide what they want to optimize for. Right? For example, and I think my approach works for me quite nicely, because I don't mind at all if I have a post that bombs, because one of my worst performing posts, that was a couple of years ago, there was like 3 likes, but I got a client out of that. That's the key thing. And actually, there was one, and very often the people who become clients are very often lurkers. So the people who are the most active on my content, like the regulars, I think none of them are clients. Very few of them are actually clients of mine. They're just people who, for some reason, enjoy my content. They spread it widely, but very often those who become clients, and I have a high ticket program, they are the ones who just watch and observe. And that was what happened with this post. It got 3 likes. And by the way, one of those likes was me. At the time, I was still liking my own post. So two other people. Yeah. Two other people liked my post, but one person stumbled over it. And this is, by the way, also another lesson from this is the person who stumbled over my post was somebody completely outside of my target audience. She's a corporate lawyer, but she saw my post and somehow it resonated with her, and she told her husband about me, who then became a client. And she did not even engage on that post, nothing. So just goes to show that, number one, I at least recommend, do not completely cull your connections. If you have connections from your old career, don't cull your old connections, because people's careers change, and a corporate person might become a yoga teacher the next year. So people's careers change, but also they have friends who then they might recommend you to. So that's one lesson. Second lesson is, I don't necessarily aim to have a perfectly curated feed where people see, wow, every single one of my posts is so successful, because for me, I do want to optimize for revenue. I don't want to optimize necessarily for popularity. So there you just see it's different, but that's because also I have a product, I have a service package that I sell. And so for me, it doesn't really matter if a post has fewer connections. You are optimizing for something else. So the lesson from this to take is really know what you want to optimize for. And I think in your case, I think it's very good that you know that, because you just at this point want to grow. You want to grow your audience. You want to make an impact on people, and you enjoy the process of writing. And you don't necessarily, it feels like at least, you don't need the revenue at this point. Whatever comes, but you're not optimizing for that. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, heck, man, I want to make $1 as much as anybody, but it's not my income source at all right now. And I think actually that gives me, a lot of freedom I feel that I'm still trying things out, and still, clearly I've found a bit of a niche to write to, but it's still such early days that there'll be 10 different things I'll try, and it'll change over time. But yeah, to your point, what you said is correct. I'm not thinking about how do I turn this into a sale as yet. My take on it is, if I can just keep giving and giving and giving, everything I know, everything I've done, the many failures I've had, the successes that I've had, and be someone who inspires others to, follow their dream, whether it is starting a business or whatever it may be. It may be a creative dream. Just essentially, I wrote today about how the key, somebody said, wish I could remember the question, but the answer was, just post something, post anything. It was something along the lines of, how do you get the courage to start posting out into the world? And I said, look, honestly, just break the ice, just post any old crap, and then do it again, and then do it again. And you'll realize that nobody cares. That was huge for me to go, if I post something that doesn't work out, nobody cares. Everybody cares about themselves and how they look and what they're wearing and how other people see them. They don't care about what I'm writing, what I'm publishing. They only care about what I'm writing if they like it. If they don't like it, they just scroll on past. And once you get comfortable with that, it's very liberating to just, you can become fearless about it.
Exactly. Good. Couple of questions have come up. Ryan asks, do you find not being as scheduled helps you reach different audiences? Interesting.
You know, I probably should do a better job of this, but I actually, the last few posts, I've been using the same hashtags, which are very wide-ranging ones, as in they have massive followings. They're some of the biggest. They're all in the top 20 hashtags on LinkedIn in general. And I mean, to answer Ryan's question, no, I see the same sort of people show up in the comments. There's usually some new names and so forth in there, and new followers and so forth, new connections sometimes. So no, and it's not to any, honestly, I don't even really keep track. I probably should. It's really bad, man. I just kind of go with the flow. So actually, I'm not sure if it's helping me or hindering me or either one. The one thing, as I mentioned earlier, I'm just careful not to do it at a time that's going to make no sense for the US audience, because ultimately I think that is who I'll be, quote unquote, selling to. That's who I'll be working with, to whether I'm helping them with launching businesses or succeeding on LinkedIn. It'll be US and Europe based people. Yeah.
Cool. Another question is, have you gotten many SEO clients from your posts? Because you also run an SEO agency, is that right?
Yeah, so we have a little agency, haroseo.co, which is, it's a real niche product. We just build backlinks using a service called helpareporter.com. That's the one there, and I have actually, Robert. I've had some great clients where, what doing all these posts and being authentic and so forth has done is, it builds trust and rapport, and people feel, even if you haven't interacted with them, they do get a feel for who you are and what you're about, what your values are. And so I had a few people spend, 4,000 US is one of our packages, without even booking a Zoom call to meet me first, because they already kind of know me from all the posts. Even though I haven't pushed it, we're actually basically at capacity right now. I need to hire more writers, but I haven't pushed the SEO thing apart from very early on. I think my very first, Justin Welsh post was an SEO one, and I did get clients from that. The business is the service is so specific that when I talk about it on a Facebook group or whatever, I usually end up getting a client from it. So it's easy to market, which is really cool.
That's amazing. And then also you use, just kind of rounding out the recipe, I think this is what this conversation will be then about. Like, what are the components of Sam Browne's success? You also use emojis quite extensively. So there's always, now recently you have the dinosaur. Is that also, I kind of see that there's a trend here that you just basically go on a whim and it usually ends up working out. So you just use emojis quite extensively, and they're usually quite funny and uncommon, like the dinosaur one. Is there any specific reason about the dinosaur, or is it just because you slay dragons? Is that a dragon in your...
It's funny, man. Yeah. Okay. So, all right, the dinosaurs. So I had some terrible tagline. I forget what it was, but I kind of realized like it was a massive wasted opportunity. And excuse me. And so then I think it's copywriting, right? I wanted to get people to look and go, who is this guy? Slay dragons, kiss princesses. I think I had something serial entrepreneur, and I built these businesses and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, everybody's got that. It's super boring. And so I workshopped it a bit, and I thought, what if I just put something really fun at the front of it? Slay dragons, kiss princesses. Okay, that's fun. And then I looked up the dragon emoji, because I saw how people were breaking it up with emojis, and the dragon emoji is really crappy and doesn't really look like a dragon. And I thought, okay, there must be something I can put in there that's sort of dragon-esque. You'll see. And the T-Rex was so cool. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to put a T-Rex in there and nobody will care. See what I mean? Just not very good. Not very dragon-esque, in my opinion. The T-Rex is much more impactful. So then I had this little T-Rex, and then I guess I started, maybe I signed off a post with a T-Rex or somebody else did or something. And I just thought that's really fun. It's really fun to have this little signature move. And the T-Rex is one that you don't see it a lot. I guess it's buried in the emoji list or something. So I didn't exactly think like, oh, this is going to be my emoji, but I did think that's a fun way to say this is one of my posts. So as far as it goes with using it with the headlines and stuff, you'll probably see that one's from 3 days ago. But most of the time now, I usually finish the 3 sentences at the top with an emoji each. I don't usually do them on both ends because it gets a bit busy. Like that's annoying now looking at it, thinking it looks like too much. But having one on the end of each sentence, like the one above it, looks good and it pops. So I'm always trying to find ways to make my especially my headline or the hook, i.e. those 3 lines. I want you to, Justin talks about scroll stoppers. That's what that is. You see it, you go, okay, how the heck do you do it? All right, well, what do you do? I'm curious, I need to know. And so the emojis are, do you know what, before LinkedIn, before these last couple of months, I'd never used emojis in any context. I thought they were stupid. I still do think they're pretty ridiculous, but anyway, they're a useful tool, right? And look, honestly, they do make the reading experience a bit more fun, and you can kind of you can break up your posts with them. So yeah, you can see that that's very much part of the formula. Yeah, and do you want to kind of go through like a few other things while we're on the call, or
absolutely
along the same lines? Okay, so like if you were to open one of these posts, and I can kind of talk about what I'm doing if you like.
Yes, absolutely. Which one?
Any of them will be fine.
Okay, let's do today's. People think it's about money.
Okay, cool. So one thing that I do that I haven't really seen people talk about particularly is I'm really intentional with the physical shape of the post. And so what I mean by that is I make sure that it's a really enjoyable reading experience aesthetically, as well as obviously the content, the text, the wording. So, for example, we've got that line time. The word time on its own is because it's impactful. It's a big punchline, and then we've got a few more lines on their own, and then we kind of get into the meat of the post. With you start to realize it when you're 30. You realize you'll never be in 20s ever again. You can't go back. End of idea. And then so I often will group sentences in groups of 2. It's a really nice amount of text for your brain to take in at once. Then you jump to the next one. Then you jump to the next one. And so I'm trying to make it as digestible and painless for the reader as possible. I don't want them to bounce because there's text everywhere and there's lines that finish with a single word on one line. So often I will actually post something and then I'll revisit it. You'll always see that I've edited my posts. I'm always looking to make them feel good in terms of the shape of the actual text.
That's very interesting. Quick note on editing. What I have heard from different people, and that seems to be conventional wisdom at least, is that editing a post after it has already received engagement will tank it. Because
really?
LinkedIn doesn't like the idea. It's fine probably to edit it after kind of the algorithm is done with it, as you said before, a week after. But while it's getting engagement, I got that idea from Shay Rowbottom, and several other people also mentioned that. Do not edit a single word while it's getting engagement. Why? Because LinkedIn doesn't like that. It means that you could then add something terrible into the post, and you will have 30 people who already liked it. They are now beholden to your change that you made up while you were drunk, for example, right?
Right.
But you have not. That's interesting. You are constantly editing your posts and still continue getting engagement on them?
Yeah.
Wow. That's the first counter narrative that I've seen. Like that's the opposing view on this. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So I mean, in some ways, I think how could you tell unless you were obviously editing some and not others? But yeah, I edit pretty much all of them. I check how they look and feel, and I usually will go after I hit publish. I usually will go through and then sprinkle some emojis to make it fun. And Yeah, the thing that I have noticed tempts it is having a link in there for sure. That definitely does. So you have to remember, do not put a link in there until the algorithm is finished with it. Put your link in the comments, and
Quick question on this. Even if it's a link to another LinkedIn post so that you stay on the platform?
I think so. I'm not an expert on that, but I believe that is the case, that it seems like the algorithm just does not like links, full stop.
Great. Okay. Yeah, so the shape, so you mentioned the shape of the post, that matters to you, and I agree. It's somehow this undefinable quality of certain people, how they post, is that even visually the shape of the post is great. You just immediately drawn into it. Of course, it's also the topic that they talk about, but the optical aesthetic aspect of it is also relevant.
Yeah, and I don't know, that is a lot of things that I do in business. I do them for myself rather than because I think they'll make more money or out of any necessity. So for example, I upgraded the design on findaband.co.nz in 2019. Even though the business was doing great, I thought it was the fourth version of the site, and I just felt that it could look better. So I invested a ton of money in the current design, and I really love how it looks and works and feels now. And so a lot of stuff that I do is if it feels good to me and like it's as good as I can possibly make it, that's when it's finished. And if I don't feel like that about it and I feel like it could be better, even if things are fine, it's making money and nobody's complaining, if I don't like it, then it's not good enough. And that's my approach with my LinkedIn posts as well. I want to look at them and have it like a beautiful garden. I want to go in and go, just like you said, it's an indefinable quality. You'll know it when it's wrong. You'll sometimes see posts and they're just messy and hard to read, and there's text everywhere. And basically, if it's causing you to expend effort to understand what's being read, then they're doing it wrong. It should just be served up to you. It should be so simple to consume.
Yeah. Excellent. Another question we got in: if my primary goal is getting more SEO clients, should I write my content about SEO, or should I try to connect with my ideal client base, in your opinion? Do you have a view on this, Sam?
I kind of feel like it's I guess Robert is asking with the second part of the question, should he try and connect with people who want SEO, but without talking about SEO? Funnily enough, this is one that I follow lots of SEO guys to pick up tips, and it's actually such a great niche to be in, Robert, because you can basically share your results and you're going to get clients. So you share a screenshot of, we were working with this e-commerce client for the last 6 months, and here's the graph showing our SEO work and how well they're doing now. It's like a billboard for how fantastic you are at SEO. So to answer the question, yes, I would definitely write about SEO, but I would be writing it not for other SEOs, but for business owners. I do see a lot of people who are basically showing off to their peers and being too technical is what I mean specifically. So keep it in layman's terms. Don't talk so much about the process because the client doesn't care. Just talk about the outcome and return on investment. If you can say so-and-so plumbers paid us 10 grand over 6 months and the return on investment was 400%. Great. If I'm a plumber, I'm going to go, man, I'd be a fool not to buy that service.
Exactly. Just a quick note from me on this. I like to simply take the whole persona and think, okay, what do they need? They obviously want more clients. And yes, if SEO is my area of expertise, that's what most of the posts are going to be slanted towards. But also questions like, in your business, should you even consider SEO? Is it the right one? And then explaining to people, SEO is not right for every business, right? I don't think that in my business, what I help people do, people don't search for this, they discover. And therefore, for example, the idea that, hey, should you in your business be using SEO? That is also a good topic area to explore when you are offering SEO services. So taking the whole person into account. And then definitely, I think doing these kind of Excel rows type posts also definitely helps.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I hope I say his name right. I think his name is somebody Bonini, the guy from Databox. I believe he's the CMO or the CEO of Databox. Just did a post about this, and he was saying how, you know, the priority of writing. I'll find him, man, and I can actually talk about it properly. He just posted it today.
If you can share the name, I could quickly share it on my screen.
Yeah, I can't remember his name. I'm just going to try and find him. But he was just saying how the average person writing content focuses on things like keywords and you know, sales and stuff. John Bonini is the guy. So it is his LinkedIn is /JBONINI. I actually think it's his most recent post. Yeah, it is. So he says reasons why companies blog. One, to generate more, for more keywords, generate traffic, to get more newsletter subscribers. So he writes this long list of like marketer stuff. And then at number 50, he writes to educate readers. And then he says reasons why people read blog posts. Number one, to learn, you know, to be educated. And so the point is, there's such a disconnection behind why people are, and, you know, you could also say the same for LinkedIn posts, that, you know, don't just be pumping out content asking for the sale, trying to get the sale. If you're somebody who's being incredibly helpful and you're teaching somebody everything they need to know about this thing that they don't know about that you happen to offer, there it is there, yeah. They're going to trust you and realize that you are a person who sees the bigger picture and is going to help them, and that's what they want.
Yeah. Awesome, man. There's so much value in this. I'm mindful that we're on the hour, so I don't want to hold you for too much longer, but are there any points beyond of what we discussed? I'm going to quickly summarize. We had the helpfulness, labeling concepts like the sidecar post. We had being funny. And I know this is not something that people can just come up with. They cannot just be funny. But whatever, I think I would say observe if you ever say something that makes other people laugh, try to uncover what is it that actually makes them laugh. You know, because many people are funny in specific areas, in particular ways. And so just try to analyze that. So you're definitely that. Copywriting, just do the hard work of learning copywriting, read a couple of copywriting books, and just stop doing obvious mistakes. General, in terms of consistency, we don't have that with you, so that doesn't apply to everyone, although everyone would say that. I think on the whole, it's better to be consistent. I would even argue, I don't know, I hope this is not offensive, but to argue that you might be even more successful if you were consistent. Would you disagree with that?
Yeah, man. Yeah, no, I look, honestly, I would almost say it's part of my persona, if you like, is how far I am from perfect and disciplined, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I shared my morning routine, which is absolutely terrible. And you know, like you're right. Like I could be doing better, and I could be a slicker kind of operator for sure. And to be honest with you, I'm trying to do better. But then we're all trying to do better, right? That's a good example. Like we're all trying to be better versions of ourselves.
Exactly.
And anybody who sort of says I'm a 10 out of 10, I've got it all dialed in, for sure they do not. You know, and I prefer to just say, look, I'm often getting ready for the Zoom call 4 minutes before it happens. That's just the truth. And maybe that's true for you as well. And everybody goes, it is true for me, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I love it. Then, of course, also the obsession with it. So you mentioned that you're constantly on LinkedIn. I think that's a huge part of it as well. And this is something that you cannot shortcut your way into. You really, if you want to master a platform, you just need to spend a lot of time on it. So I'm definitely glad that you mentioned that. You do market research. So you are booking calls with people who are regularly engaging because you do plan to launch products. So you market research with people as well. And yeah, that's quite a bit. And then you, of course, look at the aesthetic quality of the post itself. So those are kind of like my main takeaways from that. Is there anything beyond that? Anything that we have forgotten? Did you want to mention?
I don't think there's anything. I look, honestly, I'd be the first to admit there will be things that I try not to say something that I don't know what I'm talking about. And honestly, I probably do sometimes say something. A good example is what you pulled me up on was like when I did the power up posts, which is, the Mario post, like, hey, you should put all your links to your other content in your post. You commented saying, hey, bro, you realize it's probably tanking you in the algorithm. And it was like, that was a learning, moment, teachable moment. And realize I made mistakes. So I definitely want to tell people I'm making mistakes. I'm trying stuff. I'm doing a lot on there, and not everything is perfect. Tagline is not perfect. I'm looking at it now, and it's so busy, and there's so much going on with it. So I guess what I offer is an honest, somebody who is still figuring LinkedIn out, and I'm almost as surprised as everyone else that it's going as well as it is. Obviously, there's a bit of a method to it. The copywriting is really key, and actually really a lifetime of loving writing and loving the written word is a big part of it. But the main thing, and I've tried to really hammer this in recent posts, is I'm turning up and doing the work. It takes a lot of work to do these posts and to make them as good as possible. And, to be honest, you didn't ask about this, but to be honest, I actually feel a lot of pressure to keep performing at the same level. It's like if I get 10,000 views on a post now, I'm like, what's wrong with it? What did I do wrong? And my girlfriend says to me, like, what are you talking about? Like, it's absolutely crazy how well it's going for you. And if it doesn't happen every single time, it's fine. But honestly, I am trying really hard to keep that standard. That
of course,
high.
it's
a really good barometer. If you're getting that, it's obviously you're writing. Yeah, and you're writing good stuff. It means you're doing stuff people relate to. People won't engage and like your content for any reason other than they like it. They won't do it out of love for you or for a favor for you. So, it's a really binary measure. You're either writing good stuff or you're not. As far as the jokes go, we didn't really talk about it a lot other than you mentioning it, which I appreciate. I try to I try to keep it fun. I what I don't want to do is be that person trying too hard to make it funny. I try to put a little bit of a fun spin on what I'm doing without going crazy and being the super fun, funny guy on LinkedIn, because it's not really who I am. I just want to. I want people to keep coming back, exactly as you said. I want them to come back and think, they know what they're going to get with me, and they're going to enjoy themselves.
Absolutely. And you definitely are achieving that. It's not that the fun and the humor is forced. It's not, you're not trying to be funny. This is the worst thing, when people are trying to be funny and then most of the time it fails. You are just simply naturally funny, and it's simply, you are like the best version of a stand-up comedian, where you just look, it's like observational comedy. Like the thing from the profile picture from 2017, or the cleaning up, tidying up before the cleaner comes. Those are great examples of simply observations that are genuine, right? You can tell it's not, you're not cribbing from anyone.
Right.
And that's the thing that makes it natural.
It happens in my life, and then I write it down. I mean, if people don't get anything else, from this call, I would say, my success with keeping ideas coming is something happens in my life and I write it down. I put it in my notebook. I'll put a keyword or a phrase, or if I've got time, a whole paragraph. And because I'm constantly doing that, I never run out of ideas, and including funny stuff that happens. Yeah,
absolutely. You should have, like, I have a list of topics that I want to write about, and that's super easily accessible. It's just a very practical tip. I have it as a Google spreadsheet, where by now I have like 400 running items, most of which I will never realize, but that I just have a quick list where I just go and boom, I can just pop an idea in and then get back to it as and when I need to.
Yeah, it's once you start to flex that muscle. When I first started, I was like, what am I going to talk about? What am I going to write about? And I really didn't know, and didn't have the first idea. And now it's like a tap that I can't even turn off. It's gone from being a trickle to a flood. I'm sure this will be the same for you, that there's no shortage of ideas out there. Any given day, I could come up with 20 ideas, no problem.
Cool. Awesome. Final question, and that I find that funny. I didn't even realize there was a humor in your post. I just found value in them. Well,
Oh,
Robert, I don't think that
that is
everybody is blessed
brutal.
with a sense of humor, sir.
Yeah, that's tough, Robert. That's cold.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome. Sam, thank you so much. This was incredibly valuable. I'm sure many people will have gotten a lot of value from it. What I'm going to do is actually get back to this and then do like a list of top 10 things I learned from you and what is part of your recipe, because I think you have a lot people, so you have a lot to teach to people. And ultimately, this is what your product has to be about, right? Distilling all of that, the slight unstructured things that we have tossed around here and that we've uncovered here. That's your product.
Yeah,
I'd be the first to buy it.
I'll be interested to see what you say. It's like you can't tell from the inside looking out exactly what it is you're putting out into the world. So I'll be so interested to see what you feel is valuable.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Michal.
The State of Client Acquisition is a Content 360 production. Music by Gavin Knox-Grand. To sign up for alerts and to submit written and audio questions, go to stateofclientacquisition.com.
Montreal girls in the tail end of winter. Caffeine burned, wide awake dreams in color. Blood on my hands in this open heart journey. And infinite numbers, rapid fire across the country.